Corporate funding for Frontline is provided by Earthlink. And by NPR.
In Denver,
Skopje,
in Tehran,
Omaha,
in Istanbul, in Hong Kong,
Belgrade,
In Decatur.
in Seattle,
Beijing,
in Pittsburgh.
In Johannesburg.
this is NPR News.
Additional funding is provided by the Charles H. Hood Foundation. And by these funders. Frontline is made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think the problem parents have is that once their kid becomes a teenager, for a brief period of time, it's as though they've been invaded by another body.
They need to learn how to relate to being a kid. I think they forgot.
We now know that there's a lot of dynamic activity. In many ways, it's the most tumultuous time of brain development since coming out of the womb.
I swear to God, I'm never talking to any of your friends again. I'll never talk to you again. I swear to God. Did I say anything that I said? Why did you go in your mouth?
Those cells and connections that are used will survive and flourish. Those cells and connections that are not used will wither and die.
With all of the things that teenagers have available to them, their sleep has been shoved into an ever-narrowing window.
Living in a teenage life today is completely different from before. I know it's very stressful on adults, but they're going to have to realize that it's today's world, that's how it is.
Tonight, Frontline takes you inside the teenage brain. The sun is up, and inside the O'Donnell's house, they are trying to get Charlie up.
Child? Child? What?
Pam tries,
Come on.
No!
and then Charles Sr.
Charles, time to get up.
No, leave me alone.
All right, well,
Just get out. I want to sleep.
all right, well, time to get up. I'll give you 10 minutes.
By the time he gets up in the morning to the time he walks out the door, there's a matter of like 11 minutes maximum. So he's a procrastinator. He'll just stay in bed.
They happen to live in East Providence, Rhode Island, but parents everywhere will recognize the look and the pacing. It's a school day, and there's a teenager to get out of bed.
We have to remind him, do your hair, get your books, take your backpack, have your key for the house. It's a normal routine type of thing.
Just study?
Oh, how do you study math?
Practice.
Bacon's a little burnt.
Yeah, sorry about that. Well, he's a very friendly person. He's very outgoing. He's very well liked outside the house. It's almost like he's a different kid than he is at home, because they don't get the attitude that we get.
Well, 3 more days, you're all done. School's out.
One more.
How come you don't have to go to school on Friday?
Because that's when the unofficial report cards are distributed.
Well, maybe it'd be a good idea for you to go into school.
No. They're mailing it. Why bother going in and getting out at 10:30? I don't have to go in.
We'll see. Pam and I are trying to make sure that Charlie does well in high school so that he doesn't unknowingly close some doors on himself for future opportunities. It was nice of your mother to cook breakfast for you this morning. Say thank you.
Yes, I did, Dad.
It's good.
Did I? No.
No, you didn't. Go ahead. You're welcome.
Can I have another drink of orange juice?
If parents often wonder what is going on inside the teenage brain, tonight, some answers, perhaps more than most parents expect. Here at the University of Minnesota, this $2 million machine is revealing the secrets of another 15-year-old boy to his father. While Colin Nelson lies calmly, a scanning machine, a magnetic resonance imager, will open a window into his brain. The details are there, but what does this picture mean about mood, learning, memory?
So if he has a good hippocampus, how come he doesn't remember to take out the garbage in the morning? I wonder if he's awake. The first time we scanned him, when he was about 9, with all that noise, he fell asleep.
Charles Nelson is a neuroscientist and child psychologist at the University of Minnesota.
Teenagers have, particularly when they're first becoming teenagers, have every reason to believe and to feel that no one understands them, that they themselves are sometimes surprised at what flies out of their mouth. And a personal example is when my son was 12, he one day just blurted something out and then grinned, and he thought out loud, where did that come from? All right.
His father is trying to answer this question. Slowly, a picture is emerging of the brain of a boy, not yet an adult, not quite a child.
So we could correlate it with real life, and if we show activation in the hippocampus, the question would be, why is it that in this particular case of Colin, why he doesn't remember to bring his books home from school? I think the problem parents have is no matter how well they think they know their kid, once their kid becomes a teenager, for a brief period of time, it's as though they've been invaded by another body or another brain. And suddenly they don't quite know that kid anymore, and they get thrown off balance.
We're bending. It's a give and take situation.
But they still, they're only about like that. They still got that much more to go.
Well, it takes a lot to let go.
Not for me. You gotta be cool.
Well, for me it does. I am cool. There's nobody cooler than me, let me tell you. It just takes a lot, you know. We've raised you to the best of our ability. You may think that we're paranoid or we're uncool or we're too strict. Well, that's what works for us, we feel.
But you're not the kid. You don't have to abide by your own rules.
I have to abide by his rules.
In an artist's studio in Cincinnati, Jim Borgman is capturing the flashpoints of life with teens. A Pulitzer Prize winner, Borgman developed the popular Zitz cartoon with artist Jerry Scott. Now syndicated in 900 newspapers, Jeremy and his comic strip family are familiar to parents everywhere.
90% of the letters we get fall into one wonderful category, which are, you must have a camera in our house. Or, this is my son exactly. I can't believe it. How are you doing this? Jeremy is 15 years old. He can't drive. He's still stuck within the orbit of his parents' rules, and they are still a much bigger factor in his life than he would like. And so there's that moment before he can get out of the house and drive off on his own when there is the maximum tension in the house.
Many parents are thrown for a loop when their kids get to be an adolescent in some respects. And what I think they need to do is recognize that this is just another phase of child development, and even though their children may be shouting more and talking back more and kicking and throwing temper tantrums, it's just a temper tantrum in a 5-foot tall body instead of an 18-inch long body.
And Nelson knows. He's an expert on little babies. This one, Natalie Awney, can already recognize her mother's voice, and she's just a week old. By measuring small brain waves, researchers at Nelson's lab at the University of Minnesota can show how babies are learning quickly, taking in data from the vivid world around them. That period of dramatic growth in Natalie's brain will happen once again, just before she becomes a teenager.
I think The transition into puberty is analogous to the transition to being a baby in many respects, that a child suddenly is undergoing fairly substantial changes in their brain development at a very, very rapid pace. And that period of time, often that lasts only a year or two, is a time where we really need to pay very close attention to what's happening to our kids.
But paying attention to a teenager brings a different set of challenges.
We have rules that you have to follow while you're in the house, like it or not.
Did you like your father's rules?
Probably not.
You don't remember it? Probably.
I still have a good relationship with my father, Charlie.
Yeah, but did you like his rules?
I would assume he had rules that I didn't care for, but while I was living in the house, I had to abide by the rules. And I feel, you know...
Did you want to move out of there as soon as possible? Because of those rules?
No.
They need to learn how to relate to being a kid. I think they forgot. Just stuff like that. Let us make our own mistakes.
15 years old. A teenager with wheels that are too small, with ambitions to drive, to fly in a larger world. Late at night, Dr. J. Geed heads to work. He too is grappling with the teenage world, trying to untangle the workings and wirings of the adolescent brain. This doctor is crossing over a new threshold to a fresh understanding of adolescence.
I think people for generations have been fascinated by teen behavior and what is happening in teens. But for so long to actually look inside the biology of teen behavior has been very elusive. And we just haven't had the technology or the tools to try to peer into the so-called black box.
But now he does. Dr. Geed of the National Institute of Mental Health gets the use of this imaging machine one night a week to look at the brain structure of normal children. Teens come in and sometimes even sleep in this large magnet so he can take a long, hard look inside their brains.
Now, for the first time in our human history, we can actually start exploring the living, growing activity of the human brain. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off.
What he discovered in the all-important part of the brain that sits behind the forehead, in an area called the frontal cortex, was an unexpected growth spurt, an overproduction of cells just before puberty.
This is a process that we knew happened in the womb, maybe even the first 18 months of life. But it was only when we started following the same children by scanning their brains at 2-year intervals that we detected a second wave of overproduction. And this second wave of overproduction is manifest by an actual thickening in the gray matter, or the thinking part, in the front parts of the brain.
Many people mistakenly believe that most of the changes occurred in the first few years of life, and that after a child was about 3, there was actually relatively little change occurring. And we know that that's absolutely incorrect.
Well, I think the most surprising thing has been how much the teen brain is changing. By age 6, the brain is already 95% of its adult size. But the gray matter, or thinking part of the brain, continues to thicken throughout childhood as the brain cells grow extra connections, much like a tree growing extra branches, twigs, and roots.
It's like this. The brain grows like a tree. First, there is a flurry of growth. Then unused branches or pathways are pruned. And it is this pruning that gives the tree its shape for the future.
I'll hold this in position because it has to have a little bit of an angle. You want to tighten this clamp. Run them up with your fingers first.
For Charlie, as he works in his uncle's garage, the skills he's acquiring will strengthen certain neural pathways. What he practices will combine with his own genetic heritage to consolidate the wiring in certain parts of his brain and not others.
The last thing we want to do is give this thing a little wiggle.
Want me to hold it right there?
Yes, right there is perfect.
The pruning down phase is perhaps even more interesting because our leading hypothesis for that is the use it or lose it principle. Those cells and connections that are used will survive and flourish. Those cells and connections that are not used will wither and die. So if the teen is doing music or sports or academics, those are the cells and connections that will be hardwired. If they're lying on the couch or playing video games or MTV, those are the cells and connections that are going to survive.
It is not only what a teenager does that matters, but how old he is and what the immature brain is capable of doing. Some areas coordinate and oversee others, and it is those parts of the brain that have long interested neuroscientists.
We've known for a long time that what we actually call the prefrontal cortex, the part that sits behind your forehead, is involved in planning behavior, your use of strategies, a technical term we call cognitive flexibility, which is can you change your mind and do you have sort of a fluid way of going about solving problems.
Part of the brain that is the so-called CEO or the executive of the brain is still being built during the teenage years. Teens are capable of enormous intellectual and artistic accomplishments. But that basic part of the brain that gives us strategies and organizing and perhaps warns us of potential consequences isn't fully on board yet.
The risks of a severe concussion or a turned ankle, for instance. An adult brain might call for a helmet here or suggest this is not quite the moment to take a drag. But when you're very good, very determined, and very young, it's easy to feel invulnerable.
On some occasions I wear helmets, but not that much. I come here almost every day, so it's not that much for me if I fall, because I'm kind of used to it. I just get little scrapes. No, it's not that risky.
Well, not that risky would be one way to put it.
It's one of like the most common, either rolling or wrists.
Adolescence has always been a period of high risk. We know that teenagers engage in risky behavior, and they have always engaged in risky behavior. There's nothing new about that now. And because the child, the 13 or 14 or 15-year-old, still has an immature frontal cortex, they often do not make the most responsible, reasoned decisions. And by virtue of having things available that can do harm, they often wind up in a higher risk group than I experienced as a child myself.
The prevalence of drugs, for instance. Here at a rave party, ecstasy and other drugs are a kind of rite of passage.
When you're on E, you love everyone. Like, I love you.
Very similar to San Francisco, 1969.
The way you feel, like your hands are soft, you can touch your face, your skin is very, very soft. People touch you, it's nice.
It's also a particularly cruel irony of nature, I think, that right at this time when the brain is most vulnerable is also a time when teens are most likely to experiment with drugs or alcohol. If they're doing drugs or alcohol that evening, it may not just be affecting their brains for that night or even for that weekend, but for the next 80 years of their life.
Sullenness, boredom, one-word answers, the misery. You know, it always looks a lot more humorous to us in retrospect.
At the old carousel in Riverside, Rhode Island, Brittany Husnander and her friend Leah Kroll ride around just as they did when they were kids. But now the thrills are elsewhere.
So what happened last night? Did you guys, like, kiss or anything? No. Why not? Cause why? I don't know if I want to. Why not? I don't know. Okay. How come you wouldn't give him an answer, Leah? I want you to go out with him. Then why do you make it so complicated? There's nothing to do in Riverside. It's so boring. We just walk around. That's all we ever do is like walk around or like, I don't know, we barely even do anything. We go to the beach sometimes we go to the mall, sometimes we go to the movies, but pretty much all we do is sit around and just like talk, go in the pool or whatever. It's boring.
Brittany can change from fed-up teen to focused artist very quickly. She's a good student with many talents and a lot of support from the teen expert in her house, her mother Beverly.
They're trying to make the best way they can. They're trying to put the pieces together the best way they know how. And on top of it all, they're going through this hormone thing and peer pressure and all this other stuff.
Bev is sympathetic to the ups and downs of teenage life. She is easy about Brittany's swings in mood, able to tolerate a lot of teenage angst.
Now she's aggravated. Can't do nothing right these last 2 days. I wonder whose fault that is. God bless the guy who's willing to take her on, because he's going to have to be a very open and comfortable person with females rather than being intimidated by them.
No, he didn't!
Brittany's not going to be intimidated by her brother Brandon.
All right, you're not going to deny that they flirt with me too. So why aren't you mad at them? That's why I get mad at Leah. I don't get mad at you because Leah always sits in your room with you and follows you guys and talks to you guys. I don't get mad at you, I get mad at Leah. So why are you mad at me? Get mad at your friends. Tell your friends to stay the away from me.
Did I say anything? Did I say no, you couldn't sit here?
I swear to God, I'm never talking to any of your friends again. I'll never talk to you again. I swear to God.
You don't have to stop talking to us. You can talk, but the way...
What am I not supposed to live in my own house? They're here more than I am.
You live on Mike.
I swear to God, I'll be like, Mike, you need to move. I live here, and there's no other seats on the couch, so I need to lay down. Get up.
You don't see me doing it to your friends whenever someone goes, you want to go to Bucky's, you don't see me go, yeah, I'll go with you, I'll take the walk, oh man, let's go.
Alright, I'm sorry. I'm sorry! I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Bev Husnander remains unperturbed. She knows it could all pass in a moment.
I have plans. Give me a hug. You didn't hug me. I hugged you.
Okay, that's good enough.
No, give me a hug. Give me a hug. Thank you.
We think that the dramatic changes in mood, for example, a child having an outburst at one moment and then being very calm and happy the next, is due in part to changes in hormones, because we know that as a child enters puberty, these changes in mood are much more dramatic, and as a year or two after puberty has begun, things level down a little bit. But we think the ultimate responsibility for regulating these mood changes resides in the frontal cortex, and that's what's overseeing this whole operation.
Jim Borgman, a parent himself, recalls his own teenage mood swings with great clarity.
Remembering those years and how they felt and how insecure we were and how vulnerable we felt, and the sadness and the loneliness and the confusion and the isolation. The strip is intended to be funny, and I hope it is, but there has to always be that underlying layer of the sudden touch you have as a teenager with the deep well of human experience.
Nicole Ellis often feels vulnerable, but today the picture she's trying to portray is of the self-assured Nicole, the one who is running for student council at a Toronto high school.
I've been attending the school for the past years and noticed the lack of interest taken to make the school more exciting. That's why I'm running for social convener. One of the things I'd like to bring back to is our school dance.
Today the students will give her a vote of confidence.
It's your school, embrace it. Thank you.
But for a teenager, confidence is something clutched at, seldom held.
1 hour I could be really happy and laughing, then the next hour I'm just really, really upset. Then it could be one whole day I'm fine, then 2 days later I'm just mad.
It's funny, but it's like...
Nikki lives with her mother and two brothers.
Upsy daisy, come on.
Her mother Gail knows the turbulence of the teenage years.
I know her moods. I know when something is bothering her. I know when she feels she doesn't want to talk. And I know when there's a time to just leave her alone. And I also know when there's a time to find out what's bothering her ASAP. I sort of have to feel her out. I give you those.
Sometimes I just don't feel like talking, period. And then she knows. She knows that, so...
But like, are you feeling angry inside, confused? What? That's what she wants.
I don't even know. Sometimes I don't even know.
Sometimes she doesn't know. She
doesn't even know why I'm upset. I'm just upset.
She comes to me sometimes. She says, "Mom, I feel like crying." So I sit down, put her in my arms, and let her cry.
The recent work on brain development, in my mind, enormously helps explain things that we've known for some time in child development. So people who've studied adolescence for many years have pointed to these changes in behavior that we've been describing, these changes in mood and fluctuations in mood and the like, without quite being able to pinpoint what was responsible for those changes. And now I think we have a much better handle on that. And I think my argument would be that it's the changes going on in the frontal cortex that gradually give the child the ability to regulate those powerful emotions, solve problems more effectively, to be more planful in their behavior. So what's really new here is our ability to explain the child development work that we've known about for quite some time.
I find that the quickest way to get shut out is to ask questions about things that you're not welcome to know or to share. So for me as a parent, it has always been more a matter of waiting for the oyster to open and being present when it does.
Dr. Deborah Yergelin-Todd and her associate Stacy Gruber are scanning the brains of teenagers to see how they read emotion. The small but intriguing study at McLean Hospital near Boston is mapping differences between the brains of adults and teens.
I came to this research with the assumption that the teenager was going to look a lot like an adult. In fact, I assumed that the 13-year-old brain would respond quite similarly to the adult brain in terms of the kinds of tasks that we were asking them to do when they were in the magnet.
To explore this, Todd put teenage and adult volunteers through an MRI and monitored how their brains responded to a series of pictures.
Here we go. Ready? Ready.
The volunteers were asked to discern the emotion on these faces. The results were surprising.
One of the interesting things about the findings are that they suggest that the teenagers are not able to correctly read all the feelings in the adult face.
All the adults identified this emotion as fear, but the teenagers invariably saw something different.
Patrick, how you doing?
Okay.
Tell me about those faces. What were those faces feeling?
A lot of them were shocked or angry, and I think that was it.
Okay, shocked and angry.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
They see anger when there isn't anger, or sadness when there isn't sadness. And if that's the case, then clearly their own behavior is not going to match that of the adult. So you'll see a miscommunication, both in terms of what they think the adult is feeling, but also in then what the response should be to that.
The reason for this, she believes, is that teenagers use a different part of the brain to assess the emotion on people's faces.
This is a really nice picture highlighting the fact that in an adolescent brain, the relative activation of the prefrontal region, or this anterior front part of the brain, is less than it is in the adults. But in contrast to that, the more emotional region, or that gut response region, has more activation compared to the adults. So that the relationship between these two regions is very different. And we think that that's been a very important finding in terms of understanding adolescent behavior.
At Nikki Ellis's high school, students often feel that they are the ones who are misunderstood, not the other way around, with some exceptions.
When you're looking on the board here and you see you as central, how does your family factor into your life? I would like a picture of you. No! I don't want a mugshot, I want a picture, okay?
Patrick Knight is a popular teacher, often acting as a bridge between the students and adults. We asked Knight to gather a group of his students to find out what's on their minds.
What's a stereotype that's placed on teenagers' shoulders that bothers you?
That no matter what they're doing, they're always causing trouble. Everything they do will end up causing trouble in some Young way. and stupid. Yeah.
Just that they think we're all liars. They think, I think, like, not even that we're liars, like people, a lot of them, adults think we're dumb.
But that depends on
like
the
we
way
don't
you
know
present yourself.
exactly. No, but not even that. Remember, you could be just walking. I've been standing beside adults. I stood beside adults, and there could be just a girl or a guy walking. They don't look anyway. The guy doesn't have to be, he doesn't have on no bandanas or nothing. And they'll just, oh, look at them. I don't know why teens love to walk street and da-da-da-da.
My dad thinks that, like, I drink and I cause trouble. And he thinks that I'm always looking for ruckus and stuff. That's not true.
The funniest thing, though, is just like they think that we're dumb and that we're whatever, and then some of these people that have that attitude, and they've even said stuff to me, and some people, they are the biggest hypocrites I've ever seen. I was just like, okay, like, be quiet, you know, like, look at yourself and then fix yourself up before you judge me.
The teenager is not going to take the information that is in the outside world and organize it and understand it the same way we do.
I'll just be sitting at home watching TV. And my mom will say, "Did you do that for me?" I'll be like, "Oops, I forgot, sorry." You didn't forget. You chose not to do it.
Accusations.
You chose. You decided that you did not want to do that.
Exactly.
Because if you wanted to do it, then you'd have done it right away.
My mom will bully, she'll say, oh, but you didn't forget to roam street. You didn't forget to go, oh, you didn't forget to...
Exactly.
In terms of interactions at the dinner table or on the weekend or doing chores or doing homework, it means that whatever communication, whatever conversation you had with them, if you're assuming they understood everything you said, they may not have, or they may have understood it differently.
The new ways of looking at the brain point scientists like Jay Geed to a different understanding of how it works.
The cerebellum in the back of the brain is a part of the brain that changes most during the teen years. So this part of the brain has not finished growing well into the early 20s even. The cerebellum used to be thought to be involved in the coordination of our muscles, but we now would know it's also involved in coordination of our thinking processes. And just like one can be physically clumsy, one can be kind of mentally clumsy. And this ability to smooth out all the different intellectual processes, to navigate the complicated social life of the teen, and to get through these things smoothly and gracefully instead of lurching through adolescence, seems to be a function of the cerebellum. As a society, we're less active than we ever have been in the history of humanity. We're good with our thumbs and video games and such, but as far as actual physical activity, running, jumping, playing, children are doing less and less of that. And the recess and play seem to be the first thing that is cut out of school curriculums in tight times. But those actually may be as important or maybe even more important than some of the academic subjects that the children are doing.
Applying new science to public policy has always been tricky, and nowhere more so than in areas that affect children. Take, for instance, the debate over what science has said about early childhood. Parents used to be told that mobiles, Mozart, and lots of stimulation would make their babies smarter. If they didn't do it early, there wouldn't be a second chance. We now know that simply isn't true.
Brain science has told us very little about what we can do to raise our children and raise our children better.
John Brewer is the author of a book, The Myth of the First 3 Years.
Not very many. So.
What we really have to be careful of here is if we're talking about how fast 3-year-olds learn or what kind of moral decisions teenagers could make, the relationships between the behaviors and the desired behaviors and the brain structure is totally unknown. So this simple, popular News Weekly magazine idea that adolescents are difficult because their frontal lobes aren't mature is one we should be very cautious of.
Even Dr. Jay Geed, who seems to have penetrated deep inside the teenage brain, wonders about the kind of lessons parents can draw from his science.
The more technical and more advanced the science becomes, often the more it leads us back to some very basic tenets. And sometimes it's even disappointing to people that with all of the science and with all the advances, the best advice we can give is things that our grandmother could have told us generations ago, to spend loving quality time with our children.
So often what happens in the United States is that we're on a pendulum. We go from saying this is good to this is bad, and then we say what was bad becomes good.
Ellen Galinsky is a social scientist and the president of the Families and Work Institute. She has seen scientific fads come and go, but she says her research for a book about children shows there are enduring lessons for parents.
Even though the public perception is about building bigger and better brains, what the research shows is that it's the relationships, it's the connections, it's the people in children's lives who make the biggest difference.
A lot of times, older kids, they seem to break away from their parents a little bit. It's like a feeling of freedom or something. And then they find that when they get into a problem, they want their parents' help, but they don't want to, outright ask their parents.
You'd really like them just to step in and say, hey, you don't seem too, happy today. Is everything okay? Because sometimes, I don't know, I have trouble asking, expressing my feelings if someone doesn't come up and ask first.
Surprise to me, and it's a surprise to every group of parents or teachers with whom I speak, is that kids are actually yearning, teens are yearning for more time with their parents.
From since I was younger, she was always there for me. Whenever anything happened, it's her. She's there. Anything went down, when I'm feeling sad, whatever, it doesn't matter when it is. She's just the type of person who will always make sure you're fine. Bye, Mom.
Bye, Nick. See you later.
Gail Jarvis works 2 jobs. Every afternoon, she heads out for the evening shift, leaving 3 kids behind. Yet even though Gail has to spend a great deal of time away from her children, they feel her presence.
She's always calling from work. I mean, she works till you've been to my house. You heard how much my mom. Her mom called her just for not eating food, guy. Because my mom, she's the way that she has to make sure that when we get up, when we come home, she finds out how was our day. As soon as we come, she knows the time we come home. Ring, ring, ring. Bitch's mom. Bet you. Okay. Hello?
Hey.
Hi, Mom.
What's up?
What'd I say?
Did you have to come?
Yeah, but he had to leave early. He said he had to go straight to work, so he said sorry. Hold on.
Hi,
Mom.
How you doing?
How are you?
What's up?
Nothing.
You have to be careful with kids. It's a time when you push them off. That's the time when they really need to be heard. So you have to be very, very careful. Because it's easy to say, okay, call me later, maybe, we'll talk later, but then later might be a couple of minutes too late, so you don't take that chance.
I hate that, how everyone does that. Was that how it was when you were younger?
Bev Husnander spends a lot of time listening to what's on the minds of her kids. Here, she lets us set up a camera to observe a typical evening with Brittany and her friend Leah.
He's been suspended 100 times, so he finally quit school because he was never in school anyway because he was suspended so many times.
For what reason?
She went to class like normal. She was just a little out of it.
Couldn't walk. And then she passed out next to the toilet.
So they just won't listen to us no matter how hard we try, so we have to suck it up. And
the name of my 6th grade report was How to Help Our Children in This Me First Culture. Whatever that means.
I just wanted to be open. I wanted them to be able to talk back to me about anything and not feel that they were going to be reprimanded or thought foolish or insignificant or they didn't know what they were talking about because they were children or because they were kids. I think kids are a lot smarter and a lot in tune to what's going on than their parents ever give them credit for.
Growing up, one of the things I hated, or even when I was an adult in certain situations, I hated that feeling of when I got home, I know there was going to be something that was going to upset the apple cart, and that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach, and I don't ever want them to have that.
Charlie O'Donnell regards his mom as a good sport. But he's still continuously battling for more independence.
I'm going to go to the Air Force after high school, and then I'll get my college paid for, then go to college. Doesn't really matter where. I just want to get out of the house. I want to live in a dorm. No parents' rules. I'd have to set them for myself.
Separation is the whole job of teenagers. And as parents, what we would say we want, what we truly want in our hearts, is to launch them into rich, independent, textured lives of their own. And so in the teenage years, here we get it, and it doesn't always feel the way we thought it would. I have a friend who says that teenagers plant their feet firmly on your chest and launch themselves off into their own life. And that's just how it feels usually.
So I went back and I asked teens, and they said, well, yeah, we are pushing our parents away because it's really hard for us to come out and say, I need you. It makes them feel young, or, they want us to be mind readers. Okay, well, we can't be mind readers. But what they said is, hang in there. If we push you away, yeah, we still want you, so hang in there. When you ask children whom they admire, they often talk about their parents. If they have a good relationship, they talk about their parents.
I tell my mom mostly everything. Like, I don't tell her guy things, but, like, I tell her mostly everything, like, about my friends and everything. I trust my mom with everything.
I admire my mom because she's been raising me and my sister by herself. And if you know me and my sister, you know that she's done a good job.
I think you can put more trust in your mom than you can in anybody else. And I have no shame in saying I love my mom. My mom can be clear down the hall and I'll bawl out, hi Mom, I love you, just like that.
There's one ring. I got the golden ring!
This report continues on our website, where you'll find summaries of brain and sleep research discussed in the program, with details and pictures of the brain's development and how it affects teens, online activities for parents and teens on ways to improve communication skills, a report on the challenges of applying cutting-edge science like this to public policy decisions, and find out here if your local station is re-airing this program and when. Then join the discussion at PBS Online, pbs.org, or write an email to frontline@pbs.org, or write to this address.
Next time on Frontline, it's a multi-billion-dollar business that has doubled in size in the last 3 years.
Billions and billions of dollars.
It has transformed the internet and is so successful, it has attracted some of the biggest corporations in America.
Action!
Frontline investigates the business and the politics of American porn. Next time on Frontline.
To order Inside the Teenage Brain on video cassette, call PBS Home Video at 1-800-PLAY-PBS.
National corporate funding is provided by NPR.
In Denver.
Skopje.
In Tehran.
Omaha.
In Istanbul. In Hong Kong.
Belgrade.
In Decatur.
In Seattle.
Beijing.
In Pittsburgh.
In Johannesburg. This is NPR News.
And by Earthlink. Additional funding is provided by the Charles H. Hood Foundation. and by these funders. Frontline is made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.